Welcome back to the channel where I talk to the people behind Australia's franchises, asking them the real questions as to what makes their franchises tick and why you should consider buying into their network. Less sales talk and more real info that gets under the covers of franchise ownership. Today's quickfire Q&A spotlight is on Kelly Sports franchise. If you want to see if you're a good fit for this franchise, take our assessment in the link in the description, or if you want more information on the franchise itself, head over to hatch.com, take a look at Kelly Sports, press inquire to receive their franchise information pack. Today I'm joined by Gary and Dom, who are the master franchisees for Kelly Sports here in Victoria. Welcome guys, and thank you so much for joining me today for the quickfire Q&A.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Good to be here.
Okay, getting into the company overview and history, and I know you guys aren't the founders, but you're ingrained in the business itself, Kelly Sports. Can you talk to us? Where did it originate? When did it start? And what is the vision? What's the 5-year plan for Kelly Sports? Where are you going?
All right. So where did it start? Kelly Sports started in 1994. A guy called Brant Kelly founded the business, hence the name. Brant sold out quite a while ago now, and things have evolved over that time. That's kind of the history. We've been around for, I think that's our 31st year this year. So certainly in this business, it's a fairly long-lasting business, which
well established,
pretty well established. Yeah,
the pain points, the growing pains, and have solid customers out there.
I think so. Yeah. So certainly Kelly Sports probably started as pretty much an after-school care or after-school sports program, but, there's been an evolution over the years, and there wouldn't be many franchisees, probably any franchisees, in fact, that would be purely relying on after-school sport. Things evolved into lunchtimes, preschool/kinder programs, school holiday program, providing umpires and referees, sporting schools, so even NDIS support, different incursions, that sort of thing as well into OSH programs. So we're always looking at ways that we can, innovate and to continue to grow as an organization.
What does the 5-year plan look like? How many locations or franchisees is there, and what sort of the growth targets? What are you trying to achieve over the next 5 years?
Okay, so at the moment there are 8 franchisees in Victoria, with there's another 14, 15 company-owned sites.
Yep.
And then Greenfields, there's quite a few, particularly regionally, across to Gippsland, up around Wodonga, all the way across the other side to Warrnambool, and further north up around, Mildura and along there. So certainly we think that there's scope for development still, and that's certainly part of our plan. There's lots of zones with certainly quite a few programs in them that are ready to be bought now, all across Melbourne.
Yep.
And then, some regional zones that with the right person could be a fantastic opportunity for people. So certainly within our 5-year plan, Dom and I aren't going anywhere. We've only recently taken over as master franchisees a bit over a year ago. And we do have a plan to expand the franchise base and to have more franchisees in the system. So look, I would say probably to double the franchisees within 5 years is a realistic goal.
So moving on now, we're going to talk about your product or your service offerings. And you mentioned earlier that it's not just after school care. There's quite a lot of supplementary services. But can we start out with what is the core service or the core product that you offer? And then I'd imagine there's quite a lot of fringe offerings as well that tie into that.
Yeah, so probably if you look at a standard day, a standard Tuesday, which is what we're doing, the day we're doing this today, we would have a number of after-school programs in place, so after-school parent-paid programs. So that probably still remains the number one revenue driver for us. Number 2, certainly lunchtime programs in the same area. So it's parent-paid, advertised through the school, flyers distributed or a flyer in a newsletter or via Compass. So certainly those parent-paid. And look, this does depend on zones. Every zone's a little bit different, depending on the demographic and the size of the zone and the amount of schools they have and so on. But they're probably two big ones. Kinder programs are pretty big as well. So they're typically in the mornings, typically centre paid. So you negotiate with the childcare or kinder an hourly rate. So we have quite a lot of them all throughout Victoria, South Australia and the ACT. Sporting schools, so that's government funded money.
Yep.
So lots of schools access sporting schools programs. They receive a government grant and they need providers to come into a school, usually during the school day, not always, and run specific programs around set sports. So people might go in and run a hockey program or a baseball program or a volleyball, something along those lines. Our staff will go in and facilitate.
So then you'd be tailoring the offering to what the core interest is of the school itself. So if there's a need for a certain sport, you guys can facilitate that sport.
Yeah, that's right. So if we've got, and we encourage not only our franchisees, but, staff underneath the franchisees to become qualified in a number of sports to increase the reach of the programs that we can offer.
Yep.
So certainly it's probably a growing income source for us, because you do have a lot of PE teachers that, like anyone, they've got areas of strength, but also they might want to cover certain sports that they don't really know or understand. And that's where we can come in and fill the gap. The other big one these days is school holiday programs. That can be a significant proportion of any franchisee's revenue.
Yep, certainly. Target market and industry trends. Who are you looking for as a customer? Is it schools? Like I'd imagine I heard Gary mention earlier. Are you guys trying to source the school first and then promote through the school? Or are we sourcing the customers first and then trying to get the school involved?
Yeah, so I'd say it's twofold. Obviously, as a franchisee, your first job is recruiting those schools and getting them on board to start with. Once you have a school in place, your target market then changes to the families that attend that school. So you're looking to offer a solution for them, and a lot of the time it is after school care. So I can't pick the kids up for an extra hour, or I can't pick the kids up for an extra 90 minutes. This is perfect. Kelly Sports are on site at the school. I don't have to go and pick them up from the local YMCA or somewhere else. It's where we usually drop the kids off. They're safe, they're looked after, they're only doing the program with fellow students as well.
Yeah.
So it's that target market of the parents, and mainly the working parents, but not just that. Sometimes families want their kids to do an extra after school activity, and it's the convenience of being at school where they're still being active, they're still learning the fundamental motor skills of certain sports. Sometimes we'll be running multi-sport programs, so we're trying to give the kids a taste of everything.
Yep.
For example, term one, you might do 2 weeks of cricket, 2 weeks of tennis, and then some popular sports like basketball, soccer, footy, because they're always well received by the kids. But you're trying to choose cricket and tennis because it's that time of the year when kids are probably playing it anyway.
Yeah.
And if we're doing multiple programs at the same school, which is definitely an option, some schools may only do 1 day a week. Some schools, I know in Gary's zones, 3, 4, 5 every day of the week, which is fantastic. If you've got a new school on board and you're running multiple programs there, arguably that's better than having 3 schools where you're running 1 program at each. Because if you're doing a good job at one, hopefully those kids are re-enrolling into multiple programs. So not just multi-sport, you can tailor the program to be sport specific too. So if this school really has a high interest in soccer, well, we can just do soccer for the whole term. So yeah, your target market is the families, the kids, and offering something that's going to be fun and exciting for them to do, because obviously at the end of the day, your enrollment numbers dictate how successful your program is. So if you've only got 4 or 5 kids enrolled, it's not ideal. It's probably just breaking even. You're needing to push 10, 15, 20 kids enrolled in each program. So yeah, to get back to your question, Dave, the target market to start with is the schools themselves. Once you have that school on board, it's the families. And then that's obviously for our after school programs and lunchtime programs. But for our holiday care programs during the school holidays, when we're running holiday programs, again, it's those working parents around the area, not just from the one particular school, who we're trying to, attract to us. And it's difficult because we are not a registered childcare provider, because we're not an OSH club, like a Teen Kids or a Kelly Club or a YMCA. So there is no childcare subsidy rebate for parents, which is why our prices are cheaper than them, because they don't get a rebate. So we have to differentiate ourselves. And what we do is that the kids are 100% active from the moment they come in to the moment they leave. So 8 till 5, they'll be coming in, they're looked after, they're safe, they're having a great time. Most of the time they go home, they have dinner and they go to bed. And mums and dads are happy because they're tired and they've had a big date. So target market for those holiday programs are families in the surrounding areas. They don't have to be exclusive to one school. Obviously, you want to, I've got a holiday program in Ballarat. We're advertising Ballarat wide. But when you've got an after-school program, you can only target to the families that go to that school, because that is a program specifically for Ballarat North Primary School or Essendon Primary School or whatever.
Which is good, because you're not term dependent. It means that you've got an opportunity during term, and then you've got school holidays where the business continues pretty much all year round.
100%.
Going into taking a look at ongoing fees, royalties, marketing fees. Can you give me a breakdown? Is it a percentage of revenue? Is it a fixed fee? What does it look like? Is it weekly, fortnightly, monthly? What is the breakdown of the ongoing fees?
So royalties are 12% of revenue.
Yep.
Now, that's the only fee that franchisees pay. That's paid monthly, calculated on revenue. They pay a small co-payment for access to the database, which is the back end of the website, and a couple of other, like the Google Suite, things like that all franchisees use.
Operational
expense. When I say
a
small co-payment, like it's $55 a month, that is, and then obviously the amount you pay for royalties depends on how much revenue you make. So
excellent.
Aside from that, that's the only fees that franchisees pay.
Excellent. Training and support provided to franchisees. Now, I know I say it time and time again, this is the most nervous time for a franchisee, because they've just given up a career, or they're re-entering the workforce, they're starting their own business. Talk to me about onboarding training. How far out do we start from, and what does it look like? What's covered? And then, day one, how do we look after them and support them to ensure their success, or to help them with their success moving on?
So once everything's signed off and the agreements are done and everything like that, normally we would try to work this around a school term. So as a starting point, it is a little bit messy to start in the middle of a term. So we do tend to, the new franchisee in the Mornington Peninsula did some training prior to the school term starting in early Feb. But basically hit the ground running for the start of term one. So it's, as a starting point, we have a week of going through all of the training, all of the background, going through how to use the database, how to recruit schools.
Yep.
Analysing the zone, looking at the schools to target, looking at the kinses to target.
Yep.
What is your target audience? Some of the things that we talked about earlier, actually. So the training is pretty comprehensive. So we've got a pretty long checklist that we go through. We talk about, the accounting systems. We talk about, royalties. We talk about how to train staff, how to recruit staff. So basically everything that you need is covered in that first week. Now, that said, it's certainly any time that you're going to sit through a week's training, there's going to be sensory overload, I suppose, and it's natural that franchisees are going to forget things. So certainly one of us would be designated as the main support person, depending on whether you're in the east or the west, basically. So the Mornington Peninsula is in the east, so I've been the main support for the new franchisee there. So basically being on speed dial.
Yep.
And answering questions that inevitably come up. But I think I've probably, on average, I've probably had 15 phone calls a week from the new franchisee so far.
Good.
And certainly, I want to hear that, and I want to see that, because what that shows is, number one, they want to learn and get better. And I get that they need that ongoing support.
Yeah.
The next part is that regular catch-ups. Yeah. So certainly in the first term, the new franchisee is spending every Friday in my office with me, and so has access to me basically on call, more or less, but also with my staff, so that if they've got any questions about, little things, little ideas to bounce off us, we're there to answer, and just to immerse yourselves in the Kelly Sports environment, to see what it's like, and to be able to, just talk about different ideas and what works and what doesn't and things like that. It's a pretty valuable resource.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I think I've probably gone to visit him. What's he been in business for? About a month. So I reckon I've been down into his zone probably at least once a week throughout February and early March. So Yeah, and that's something I would say weekly visits throughout the first term, which is, on demand to some extent. But certainly when it comes to, we spend a whole day on Friday recruiting, going around to about 12 to 15 kinders and schools, so
just
like,
helping ramp up that business and get familiar with the onboarding process.
Absolutely. Both Dom and I have come from being franchisees ourselves, and I get it. I get it completely from a franchisee's point of view. We know exactly how it feels every step of the way, and we're very much invested in trying to make the transition as smooth as possible and to get you up and running as fast as possible.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, moving into day in the life. What can prospective franchisees, being a Kelly Sports franchisee, what does it look like? You wake up in the morning time or you start preparing the night before. What does a typical day look like? When do you start? When can you expect to finish? And what are you doing during the day?
I guess it depends a lot on the size of the zone that the person has taken over. To start with, talking about the new franchisee that's in Mornington, I guess the zone has definitely not reached its full capacity on what its potential could be. So that franchisee will be doing quite a lot of hands-on coaching, because the biggest wage in our industry is the biggest expense in our industry is wages. So if you're saving money on wages, on coaches and doing the sessions yourself, obviously you're ticking a few boxes there, saving a few dollars. But most importantly, when you're a zone like the Mornington Peninsula, which is so much potential, that franchisee is getting their brand and their quality of coaching across to the schools and the centers that they're delivering sessions at. So word of mouth should spread pretty quickly. Hey, if you come on board, you're not getting any old average coach. You're getting the boss. You're getting the franchisee, who in this instance actually has a lot of experience in PE and has a teaching degree and wanted a business change, a lifestyle change. So come across to Kelly Sports. So the experience that franchisee has in coaching is arguably second to none. And as we all know, if you're on the ground yourself, you're delivering most of the time an 11 out of 10 session, and as close to perfect as you want it. So you can be driving that recruitment yourself. And if you're doing a good job at one center, it's a very small, close-knit community. Most of the time, you'll be getting other business through that as well. So a day in the life of, if I say for the new franchisee would be, depending on how many sessions, would be coaching those sessions themselves. So it might be going to a kinder in the morning, doing an hour or two there, depending on the agreement and the contract that's in place. Yep. You probably have a bit of downtime with admin. Yep. A lot of the time, depending on the sessions and where they're located in your zone, there may be time to go back to your home office to work, or whether it's working on the move. It's a lot of dependent on the location of the sessions throughout the day. Yeah. So either working from the home office or from your car, which early days was my office. Yeah. With everything in there, and you're basically just going from session to session, trying to do things in between. Now that can change, I guess, depending on where you are. For example, you might be in an area where you've got a couple of hours between sessions, and you go, you know what, I'm going to pop into these new schools and new centers and introduce myself. I'm in the area. It makes sense. I might be following up from an email I sent them last week anyway to offer them a free session to hopefully get more business, things like that. So between sessions, you're recruiting, you're marketing, you're advertising, you're maybe setting up your upcoming holiday program. Yeah, you might be hiring new staff, going through training and induction with them. As the franchisee grows and the number of programs grows in their zone, they'll probably become less heavily reliant on the coaching themselves, because they realize they need to bring in qualified, experienced staff to then develop, grow, so that they can then pass on, take over the programs, so that franchisee can continue to grow and grow. So I hope that answers a little bit, Dave. Yep. But if you were taking over a zone that was a greenfield, of course you'd be doing pretty much 99% of the coaching. If you're taking over one like Essendon, which has got a lot of programs already established, you might only want to be doing half the coaching, because you realize that there's a lot of back-end stuff that needs organization. You can't be on the tools the whole time. You need to have some stuff.
Yeah. Nice segue. Staffing requirements. So I'd imagine the franchisee, as we mentioned earlier, is going through, they're doing a lot of the work themselves in the, I suppose, the embryonic stage of the franchise, where they're onboarding schools and then they're running the coaching themselves. But then there's a tipping point where you bring on more staff. What does that look like? What sort of staff are we chasing? Are we chasing coaches that are trained, or are we chasing people who love kids that can then be trained? What are we looking at from a staffing point of view?
I'd say both of what you said is true, Dave. So there's probably, with the staff, to be honest with you, a vast majority of our staff are casualised.
Yep.
And uni students.
Yep.
The majority of my staffing base still to this day would be, young adults from 18 to 23.
Yeah.
Now, there are exceptions to that, of course, and I'd say that'd carry true across all the zones. But as a general rule, the casual staff, often they're students that are studying something in line with sports coaching, so whether it's someone that's doing an education degree, whether that's PE teaching or maybe primary teaching, we have quite a few of both. People doing, maybe they've done Cert 4s or diplomas in, sports related fields as well. We get quite a lot of them as well, sports science. So anyone, certainly what we're looking at is people that we can see have an interest or in sport or kids, and ideally both. The other thing,
I was going to say, think of your larger franchisees. How many casuals or how many staff would they have on? Like, what could a franchisee expect to manage if you're getting to that kind of critical mass?
Yeah, so as an example, probably one of our bigger franchises, they have, I think they've got more than 100 staff.
Yeah,
now,
wow.
They've been in business for, must be nearly 15 years now. So they have a lot, but certainly we would have quite a few franchisees that would have at least 10 staff and up to like 20, 30, maybe even 40. Now, the one that has 100, that their business model is a little bit different. They do less of the parent paid. They do more contracting work into private schools, and the schools outsource to them to provide all their coaches for their inter-school sport. Something that I didn't mention before, actually. That's certainly one area that particular zone has managed to develop really well. So, certainly where you get the staff from, certainly particularly kids that are just out of high school. Often, we've been doing recruiting actually this week, and sometimes we're looking at simple things like, what do we think the character of that kid's like? They might not have had a lot of experience at work yet because they've been high school students until the end of the previous year. So we're looking at things like, have they had leadership positions within school? Have they got those sorts of things mentioned? Looking at, have they been a school captain or a house captain, or have they done things like the Duke of Edinburgh Award, things like that demonstrate that they're not just, cruising through school and going to their classes and that's all. So
they'll be engaged, want to deliver a good service,
that's right, and
to the customer.
I've always had a general belief that I can teach people how to coach, and that by extension, my experienced staff that are leaders within my business will be able to teach people how to coach. You can't teach people how to be reliable and to communicate well and to arrive on time and to be well presented. They're things that are
and the rapport with kids.
And so that's what you're hoping to recruit, the right people that in time will learn the ins and outs of delivering a good session, but they'll always be reliable and communicate well and so on.
Jumping into territory information now, you guys, I take it it's a work from home franchise, mobile, no bricks and mortar required. But can you talk to me, what is the territory? Is it exclusive, non-exclusive, marketing zone? What size is the territory that people can expect?
So the size of the territory very much depends on whether it's regional or metro as a starting
number
point.
Of schools,
It is exclusive, but it's more dependent. It's less about the amount of kilometres the area is and more about the amount of schools and childcare. So they're probably the two key drivers. And these are decisions that have been made long before Dom and I came along. And it was back in the day, like when Brand first started the business 30 odd years ago, it was based on Melway's pages.
Well, it makes sense if you're taking a look at market share and you're trying to understand, well, X amount of schools in a territory, I need to penetrate and get a relationship in place with them. So it makes perfect sense. And I suppose it motivates the type of person who really wants to get out and grow that business.
Yeah, that's right.
Jumping into franchisee qualifications and experience I'd imagine, given you guys are working with kids, there's definitely going to be a need for working with children's card and background checks. But is there any other qualifications that you're looking for, certificates or any other qualifications?
Qualifications, I'd say not so much. It's not a necessity. Obviously, it very much benefits and there's advantages if you've got a you've had a business before or you've done teaching before. In my opinion, if you're an ex-PE teacher, you fit the mold really well.
Yep.
I did a sports management degree. My bread and butter for me, my strengths lie in my coaching. I'm very poor with accounting, with legal. Should have paid more attention at uni, didn't. But I guess you can get people on board to complement your skills down the track. You know, as you grow, you bring on those types of people in the professional field to help your business. But in my opinion, I think your bread and butter should be coaching and being able to deliver a high quality program. That said, there are franchisees whose skills, their strengths lie elsewhere other than the coaching. So it's definitely a flexible arrangement.
I was going to say that as well, Dom, given that you've, in an earlier comment, a franchisee with 100 plus staff, I'd imagine they're not on the tools so much. So, but therefore the skill set is going to be more managing people, delegation, organization, lining up sales, marketing, etc., etc. So
definitely.
It's not so much about, okay, we're just looking for PE teachers, but we're also looking for people who are seize a business opportunity.
100%. Yeah. So in terms of, compulsory certifications, definitely the employee working with Children's Check, your first aid in an education care setting is what we roll with. Obviously, any coaches are coming on board would need to provide a recent police check to make sure everything's all up to standard there. Yep. And as well, there's mandatory reporting requirements, which just like a teacher working in a school, it's really important for all of our coaches to understand the mandatory reporting requirements around child abuse, child safety, and that sort of thing, which is it's not a lengthy qualification. It can be done online through the department, through Victorian Education, and the certificate lasts 12 years. So it's just something that, similar to your first aid, needs to be refreshed every so often. Yeah, those would be the most essential things in terms of coaches and what they have. And obviously franchisees would need them as well if they're coaching. But in terms of degrees and whatnot, yeah, of course, it's more beneficial if you've got skills in certain areas, but definitely not a necessity.
Okay, excellent. Unique selling proposition. What is it, what's your competitive advantage at Kelly Sports? Apart from 31-year-old business well established in the marketplace, but what would you say you guys have that stands out from the competitors?
I'd probably say versatility, certainly, and this relates to, the longevity. Kelly Sports has evolved a lot over time, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this. There's, particularly in the metro areas in Melbourne in particular, there's quite a lot of competition.
Yep.
And there's competitors popping up all the time. And I guess what we try to be is as many things to as many people as we can. We want to, and certainly our track record bears this out. Our most recent franchisee of the year has won the last couple. He's developed his own within 4 years to being the best in Australia. Yep. Now he comes from a teaching background. He's a young guy. He's about 28, and he's built his up not around any of the things that I've mentioned earlier, parent-paid programs or sporting schools. Like, he does bits and pieces of those things.
Yeah.
But what he did, he identified a gap in the market around sports leagues, and he started a sports league that's grown enormously in the last, probably 2 years. So to me, that's what differentiates us to others, is that there are a lot of ways to skin the cat. Some follow a fairly traditional model of, trying to fill out the day with parent-paid programs, advertising through the schools. But, I guess what we will always try to do with any new franchisee is identify how it is that you can best grow your area, depending on what you're setting.
The requirements of that area.
It's a lot different.
As opposed to a fixed, you must do this in here. Correct. You're actually adopting the model, you're adopting the service to what is available within the territory, as opposed to trying to, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, and if you don't want it, we can't do it. So the versatility is a unique selling proposition. Excellent.
Yeah, there's a world of difference between a zone in a metro Melbourne around Camberwell and Kew and Hawthorn to going out to Werribee or Tarneet or Hoppers Crossing. And if you've got different parents, different families,
correct,
different challenges,
different cultural backgrounds, and challenges, potential risks for franchisees, there's always headwinds. There's always other issues outside. I know over the last couple of years we've had issues with inflation. Did that impact, parents' spend, or did you see an increase? But what are the potential risks for franchisees coming into a Kelly Sports?
Yeah, so always, again, I'm not going to
Always
sugarcoat it and say it's always easy all the time and you just click your fingers and it happens. Kelly Sports has continued to grow year on year despite the headwinds in the general community. I don't think anyone is immune from, 12 or 13 interest rises in a row because of the inflation, cost of living. That's a reality for a lot of families.
Yep.
And look, we've probably had to pivot to an extent. Whilst we probably still offer a lot of the same services, we've seen that we're having to change the way we try to continue things going as well as possible because of those headwinds. So, for example, lunchtime programs where there's not that immediate need for care, it's more discretionary. Certainly, we've seen that that area has probably reduced because people haven't got as much money in their pocket and they're more prepared to just say, look, you're not going to do that lunchtime program. You can go out and play, and life's not going to be significantly worse by doing that. Yep. So we've had to look at other ways, like, for example, sporting schools. So that pot of money hasn't gone away. It's something that we've focused probably more on. Birthday parties is another example. That's certainly an area that I don't think I've actually mentioned earlier. We have a partnership with Amazing Birthday Parties, and that's been an area where we've been able to, I guess, pick up the slack, and we're probably doing double the amount of birthday parties that we once did.
Yeah, wow.
Because people are prepared to spend on their kid's birthday, maybe not so much on a...
Well, I suppose the way I've got a very sporty child, one of three, but anything to do with his birthday is always around some form of competition, regardless of what it is. So I can see how you guys saw the gap of, okay, well, lunchtime it's hit our pockets here where people don't have that money, but they're always going to spend money on birthday parties, and how you've transitioned across. So that's really good.
Or even just after school care, Dave. So Gaz is right. You're never going to solve the problem of the cost of living. There's always going to be pros and cons for both. But what you'll also find is because parents who maybe used to now pick the kids up after school, now they have to work later because of the cost of living. They now need childcare. So they now need to put the kids into something. Or holiday time as well. You'll often find, maybe January is usually quiet because most families will take the time off. They'll go away to the beach. They'll take a few days off, or Easter or whatever. Or I need to work. We're just going to put you with grand and grandpa or whatever. But over time as well, sometimes it's the flip side. It's like, well, I can't take holidays. We need grand and grandpa can't look after you 10 days in the holidays because that's too much for them. We need to put you into
in some form of a program,
in some form of service, and a program that's going to be safe and tick all the boxes for us because we have to work. So because of the industry that we're in, you're always going to see things pick up in certain times and drop off in others, and other areas will pick up the slack.
Last question. This is centered around testimonials and success stories. And I think one of the main success stories that I see is that you guys were franchisees that have transitioned into becoming the master franchise owners here in Victoria. But is there anything else out there? Is there any other exciting things? Like, how have you seen Kelly Sports really impact a franchisee's life, whether it's lifestyle or change direction of career? Is there any stories that come up to mind that you can share with us?
So I'd probably start with, I guess, the franchisors for Australia are an amazing success story. Both of them not university educated, both started out as casual sports coaches, became franchisees, then master franchisees, and then bought the Kelly Sports Australia around about 2008, somewhere around there. So I'd say they're a terrific success story, no doubt about it. They've come from a fairly humble background and fairly humble beginnings. Probably the other one is the guy in Bendigo, Bo, who's again has made a jump really early. Like I'd say, typically people would probably establish themselves in a career and have a little bit more capital behind them before making a jump like this, maybe feeling a little bit jaded with their previous profession.
Yep.
But, he was probably only teaching for 3 or 4 years when he decided to make the jump. And I've got no doubt he wouldn't be turning back now. He's a guy that, without thinking about it too much, there's no doubt that he'd be getting paid more as a franchisee now than he would be as a teacher. As an old teacher myself, I know how much they're paid, and he'd be doing much better. So there's probably two obvious ones aside from Dom and I sitting here.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Probably add to that one, Gaz. Sorry, you go.
Well, I was just also going to mention that we've had long-standing franchisees. There's probably 3 that I can think of that have been in the business for over 10 years, aside from Dom and I.
Incredible tenure.
So, the guys in Adelaide, they've been going for nearly 15 years, and, they continue to grow and develop every day. So.
And that's testament to the strength of the brand and basically the success, I suppose, because if it wasn't working, they wouldn't be with you for 15 years. So
yeah,
exactly. Right. There's other examples there too, guys. You've got Mitch, who was started off as an intern at uni and now is probably the longest serving area manager. Definitely touted as one that could easily become a franchisee in the future if he wants to take that jump. So I've had kids who started off in Kelly Sports as well, Dave, back in the early days when I was a young, fresh person out of uni, and now she's come through the ranks and now is a casual coach herself. So you've always got that pathway, I guess, whether you're a kid or whether you're a uni student or whether you're a franchisee like we were and moving up. I think there's always room for growth. And you're right, like 31 years in the business and people have decided to stay around for a long, long time. It's I think it speaks volumes.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us a good insight and taking this Q&A quickfire snapshot. Really appreciate your time. If you want to see you are a good fit for a Kelly Sports franchise, make sure to take the assessment in the link in the description, or if you just simply want more information, head over to hatch.com, take a look at Kelly Sports, inquire, and you will receive their information back. Once again, thank you, Gary and Dom, for sharing your story with us. Look forward to chatting soon in the future.
Thanks, Dave.
Good on you, Dave. Thank you.